Hey guys, Coach Adam talking to you from TeamElitePhysique.com, and today we have the Olympia review. This is the one you guys have all been waiting for. Everyone's already been asking me. So luckily I've been in communication with some of the judges. I really wanted to take my time with this one and give you guys the right information. So let's go into that top 10 Olympia breakdown. Go into each competitor, look at what they looked like, look at why they placed the way they placed, what they can improve on next year to advance in the rankings, and go into everything that happened at the Olympia. It was a crazy year, that's for sure. So let's go ahead and go into a breakdown. Now, you guys all can see who the top 10 are on this. And, you know, there is obviously a big surprise with Maureen winning. I'm actually really happy about Maureen winning, really happy about Ashley making the top 3 again, of course, holding it down in that 3rd spot, and also with Phoebe making the top 10. Obviously, those are my 2 athletes. I'm going to try to give an unbiased opinion of those, of course. But let's go ahead and look at some of the surprises. Now, there was actually, I would say there was no surprises on my list of who was in that top 10. I actually, if you look back at my top 10 video that I had 9 of the top 10 in that list. I did not have Amy in that list, and I'm going to go into Amy in depth this time. But Amy was in my Dark Horses video. So I want to say I got 9.5 out of 10. So, because she was in my Dark Horses, someone I thought possibly could get in there. I was actually really surprised that she got so high, but she did make some major improvements in her physique, a lot more balanced physique, and we're going to go into that. And earlier this year, we talked about her legs being a little bit dominant, her quads being a little bit overpowering to her physique and being a little bit too developed for bikini. I actually talked to her at the Meet the Athlete. She said she's been staying away from any of these heavy compound movements, staying away from any movements that involve her quads and whatnot. And I will admit, they were a lot more tapered down than the first time I saw her. They looked really, really good. So awesome job. She's obviously been doing her homework and studying the game and structuring her workouts around that. So really happy to see people making improvements from show to show. And she really popped at the Olympia. Now, a couple of surprises at this Olympia. I will say, Ivana was one of the ones that I had in my top 10 that I thought would be in there. She ended up in 13th place. With how much momentum she had throughout the year, I was really surprised with seeing her placing below Eureka. I was actually shocked by it. Now, another name that a lot of people thought was going to be in the top 10 that was not this year was Jourdain. Had a lot of momentum going into the Olympia. She's been in the top 10 before, but she got edged out for the 11th position by Romina. So let's go ahead and go into the physiques, and starting off with number 10, Romina. So the first thing I want to do with Romina is go into her overall look and presentation. Now, I'm not going to find very many things wrong with anyone's presentation in the top 10. This is the cream of the crop. So if you're getting ready for a show, look at this top 10 and try to line yourself up with this top 10 in terms of suit selection, color, hair, makeup, jewelry, all that. This is what the cream of the crop are doing. This is how you should be preparing for your shows, picking like colors, like stylings, and you're going to find something consistent between all of them with that. Now, I don't think I'll find a bad cut to any suits here. They're all sponsored suit athletes because they're the top of the world, and you're going to find very little errors. Now, I will say with Romina, I am not a fan of the hair color, okay? That's the one thing I will say to her overall presentation. If you look at her hair color on the back here, it is very, very close to this tan. You can't really decipher between the two. It's pretty much spot on the same color as the tan. And so you never want to have your hair color be that close to your tan color, especially here in the back pose, because it really blurs the lines. You want to have some contrast between the two. So I would go with a little bit darker of a hair color to create some contrast, or a little bit lighter of a hair color to create the contrast, whatever you need. It doesn't matter which direction you go, just have that contrast. And as you can see, it really blends in. I mean, look at this shoulder here and look at that tan. You can't even decipher between the two. Now, that's just a presentation thing. Everything else she's doing is spot on. I love her suit. I love her suit color. I love her makeup and hair styling. Just the hair color, I think, is a little off. I've never been a fan of a double bracelet, but that's just a preference thing. Judges don't have a preference on that. Now, as far as her overall physique goes, this is the best Romina we've ever seen. Her physique is super on point. Her being in the argument for even being higher is definitely there. I think her conditioning was pretty spot on. I think that it could have been just the tiniest bit tighter, but nothing much. Maybe 1% body fat lower on the core would have been there, but I don't think she would have had the fullness she had she done that. So I think this is probably her knocking out of the park, her best physique to date I've ever seen, and probably her at her full peak right here. But if you look at the tie-ins, look at those tie-ins. They're fully there, but they're not etched in. Look at the adductors. There are not any crazy adductors there. You have some nice detail to the hamstrings, but no separation. There's just a tiniest bit of separation there. Really good roundness to them. I would say for her next year, one of the things she can get a little better at is getting those hamstrings just a little bit rounder, getting the glutes just a tiny bit fuller. But really, there's not much else there to work on. She's pretty close to there, and that's why she's number 10 in the world. And she's been in that position she's been top 10, I think 3 times if I'm correct. So great job to you, Romina. You looked absolutely awesome. Hopefully I'm not underestimating how many times you've been in the top 10. Maybe it's more, but absolutely awesome this year. That package was incredible. I could have easily seen her being in that somewhere between 6 and 10 with how good this package was. Now let's go into one of the big shockers of the day. 9th place, Elisa Pecini. I was definitely surprised about this one. If you look at my prediction video, I had her in that a lot higher ranking than 9th. That was a real surprise to have her be in that 9th position. So first off, let's go ahead and go into her styling, her suit, all that. So the suit color, beautiful suit color. I don't think you can really get much better contrast than that. She reaches a really good level of contrast. Blue is always a really safe color. This tan at the Olympia had a very red undertone to it. So when you're using a blue suit or a cool color versus a red, it's going to really pop. It's because it's like the opposite side of the color wheel. So it's a really poppy color. I do think that the suit cut is great, but I think she's wearing it a little bit too high on her lower back. You could see basically up here, you could see the very, very top part of her glute. I would like the suit to be just a little bit lower and kind of emphasize her glutes and make her glutes look rounder, not make them look flatter by wearing it a little bit too high. Just a personal thing on my end, but the suit cut itself and the color and design of it is perfect. I think if she's just wearing it just a little bit too high, and if it was just an inch lower, it would have made her glutes look a little bit better. So be careful when you're putting your suits on. Make sure it kind of highlights your glutes, doesn't make them look flatter at the top. Okay, so you don't want to see the entire top of the glute. Just make sure it's kind of rounding out your glutes. Okay, it makes your glutes look bigger when there's a little bit of fabric. It looks like, okay, there's more glute there, but she's covering it. But here it's like, oh, that's the very top of the glutes, right? So a little bit in the presentation, she can do better with that. Posing routine, absolutely fluid and beautiful. I mean, Isa's posing routine is the best of the best. I mean, she was a Miss Olympia just a few years ago. But why is she slipping from being an Olympia winner just a few years back to 9th place now with this front pose? Now, first off, let's go ahead and look at making her front pose better. Okay, that's all the looking we're doing because you can't make it any better. Her front pose is absolutely crazy. There's no one in the world that's better than Isa from the front. I think if it was just a front competition, she would win for the next 10 years. It's that good. It is absolutely insane that she can hold this petite bikini physique that has that round, bubbly muscle with a non-existent waistline, wide clavicles, high lats, poppy glutes from the front, round hamstrings, density but not overly dense. Conditioning is crazy but doesn't look crazy and detailed on her. It's an insane package. It's like from the front, you couldn't have made it any better no matter what you do. This is like the perfect physique from the front in bikini. Now the problem for Isa is that bikini's evolved since she's won. And Isa, out of all the girls there from the front, she'll win on every single scorecard. If there was a front and back score, like a separate front and back score, there wouldn't be a single judge where she wouldn't win that front pose every single time. I don't even know how you wouldn't place her number 1 every single time from the front. The problem is from the back. From the back, she's probably, when you line everyone up, and let's go ahead and look at that. So when you look at them from the back, here's where the issue comes into place. So what's the common thing that you're seeing between all of these girls in the top 10 besides Isa from the back, right? And it's so obvious when it comes to that back pose. Now, excuse this picture being pixelated. It's the ones I got from the NBC News Online, and they're just a smaller picture for, with hundreds of pictures. But take a look at everyone's tie-ins. Romina's tie-ins, Lauralie's tie-ins, Daraja, crazy tie-ins, Ashley, crazy tie-ins. Even Jennifer has really, really good tie-ins this year. She had good tie-ins last year too, but this year they were extra good. Maureen, really good tie-ins. Lauralie, the craziest tie-ins, right? All the way down, you're seeing these tie-ins on everyone, and it is just absolutely insane. Amy right next to her. So let's look at Isa. There's still the tie-ins just aren't there. The tie-ins aren't there. The glute fullness is not there. The way she's wearing her suit isn't helping her. It's making her glutes look even flatter. So it's just something she hasn't kept up with, and it's going to continue to hurt her year after year until she can figure that out. So this is a very confusing one, and a lot of people are like, why is she not doing good? And that's literally it. For Isa to win the Olympia again, it comes down to right here. And I hope she does it every year. We're waiting for it because the standards for bikini keep getting harder and harder in terms of the overall glute development, the tie-in development. You need tie-ins these days in bikini. You're not going to win just because you're the best from the front. And it's funny is that a lot of people are posting the picture of Isa from the front and saying, find someone better. And I'm like, yeah, it's because you're from the front. There is no one better. We already know that, but as soon as she gets her back to match her front, or it doesn't even need to match her front, but you can't be number 1 from the front and number 20 from the back and expect that score to average out to number 1. And that's what's happening. She's number 1 from the front, number 20 from the back, and her score is averaging out to number 9, right? That's what happens. So with Isa, if she gets these glutes to be a little rounder up top, a little fuller, wear her suit a little bit lower on her glutes, get her tie-ins to just actually come in fully, a little bit more roundness to her hamstrings as well, she will be the next Miss Olympia again. And if she can get those tie-ins to be at par what everyone else is, even if, let's say, she's not the best in the tie-ins, let's say she gets to like 4th or 5th best out of the tie-ins, she'll still win the Olympia because she's so dominant from the front that her scores will average out to her probably still winning because she's so much better than everyone else from the front. And that's what it's going to take for her, and she knows it. This has been an ongoing thing for her since the glutes and tie-ins have been getting crazier and crazier, and that's just where she lacks. So it's just a matter of that. Is it going to happen? Is she going to be able to do that next year? I think if she really dedicates herself, she can. I don't think building muscle for her is really that difficult. She seems to put on muscle pretty well. But that area for her genetically, she's just not the most blessed with, and it's going to take some extra effort. But when you see Isa and you look at this year, how Isa, she beat Ashley at a smaller show. Yeah, she's going to beat Isa. She's going to beat girls at smaller shows that are big names. But when you have, just a couple girls that have good tie-ins and you have Isa there, she's going to stand out a little bit more. When you get, again, amongst the best of the best, and then you don't have tie-ins and everyone else does, then you're going to fade. So it's a big difference because at a smaller show, when you have, let's say, Ashley and Isa again, yeah, Isa dominates everyone from the front. She'll beat Ashley from the front too. And Ashley dominates most people from the back. She dominates Isa from the back. So it's the judges kind of toss a coin. Who do you go with, front or back? And that's what they basically did. Every judge just basically said, it was a front and back competition. I just kind of went with Isa this time. That's kind of what happened at the shows this year. So, it's not about her winning these shows that doesn't have the comparisons of the top girls with tie-ins next to her. It's about her winning the shows where everyone has tie-ins. When she starts winning those shows and starts getting her tie-ins in, she's a threat to get that Olympia crown again. And I think probably next year she's going to be a real threat if she can work on that. I think it's very obvious now what the issue is. I think that her and her camp, they're going to figure that out. And I think, if you give someone a solid year of building those glutes and tie-ins, is a real threat for the Olympia title again next year. And next up was another surprise. Finishing in the 8th place was Janet Layug. That one was a shocker to a lot of people as well. I had her finishing a little bit higher than this. Some people were saying to me online that how could I place her so low in my original top 10 video? And, based on the standards of today, I just went with what was winning, and I was also going with her season. Her season wasn't going that great with her comeback year. She obviously took a year off and then came back, but her season wasn't going so good. She wasn't winning at the big shows. The competitors that she was losing to were going to be the same competitors she was facing at the Olympia. And I just was realistic about it. And she ended up with that 8th place. But why did she end up with 8th place? So remember, if you're knowing your history, a couple years ago, Janet was Miss Olympia just a couple years back. She vacated her crown the next year where Jennifer won. And she was coming back. So everyone thought, of course, she never lost her title. So she should come back and probably win it. She beat Jennifer once, so why wouldn't she do it again type of thing, right? Well, Bikini isn't the same as it was the year she won. It's gotten a little bit more muscular. Looking at how she's been placing throughout this year, it just made sense that she was going to probably be placing similar against those girls. She actually got pushed down a little bit lower than I thought she would into that 8th place. I thought she'd be, likely medaling, maybe switching between her and Isa for that 5th place medal type of thing. So, I was really surprised to see her at 8th, and it just shows you how much Bikini's evolved and how fast it's evolving. So looking at her overall physique, there's not really a whole lot wrong with her physique, but here's the thing. Janet has always been a structurally superior competitor. There's pretty much no one who outstructures Janet. You could look at Isa. She's pretty close. But structure-wise, Janet has a very unique structure, kind of just built for bikini. So if you look at Janet, she's very, very petite, small bone structure, but she's got a small bone structure with a very wide set clavicle. So she's got wide clavicle width. She also has, if you look at her overall hip structure, she's got really wide set hips. It's very, very rare to have someone with wide set clavicles, small bone structure, tiny rib cage, and then wide set hips. If you look at her hips on how they sit, her femur bones are going to be actually wider than what anyone her size would be. So when you look at her and how she's structurally made, let's go ahead and draw this line here. When you look at her how she's structurally made, her femur bones are like this wide. Excuse the bad drawing. I'm drawing with a mouse here. But most people her size would have femur bones that are going to be somewhere like this wide. So because of that, and where she sits, a few inches wider than normal, she has these really wide hips that create this really great illusion of hip width, small waist, and then the wide set clavicles, which give her that incredible V taper, right? But remember, she's very petite. Structurally, her bones are pretty small. She's a petite structure. And that's where she's getting hurt. So structurally, the best, right? One of the best competitors in the world. Probably the best structure for a bikini in terms of like just how the bones are laid out, right? But in terms of overall muscle size, when you're getting next to more muscular girls who are maybe small to medium base structure, small to medium bone structure, or having a little bit more muscle on them, she's just getting out muscled, and that's really it. She's just a little bit smaller. When you look at her compared to everyone else, if you just take the structure out of it, she's actually one of the smaller, less muscular competitors on that stage. She's done a very good job with her muscle. She's got very pretty muscle. When we talk about pretty muscle, we talk about the density not being too dense, the lines not being too harsh and not too separated. There's not any graininess to her physique. But look at her leg. If you look at her leg and you look at someone's leg like Daraja or an Ashley, she is significantly smaller than them. Look at Lauralie next to her. She is a lot smaller in the muscle development, especially in the legs, than these girls are these days. And that's what happened. You get her next to those more muscular girls, she looks kind of small these days, right? A lot has changed in the last few years with the overall fullness of the girls. I don't think conditioning has really changed that much, but the overall fullness, the tie-in development, the overall muscle size has evolved since she's won bikini, which was just a couple years ago, and she's been pushed out because of that. And that's really what it comes down to. So Janet, with a few more pounds of muscle on her, right back in the mix again. Structurally, again, one of the best in the world. I don't think maybe there's two girls in the whole world that have better structure than her, but she just needs some more muscle. Put 3 pounds, 4 pounds on Janet, and she's right back in the mix, top 3. And I could see her doing that next year because she's not someone who doesn't know the name of the game, who backs down from a challenge. And I'm sure that we'll be seeing her compete next year with a little bit more muscle and being more competitive in the following year. Next up, 7th place, we have Phoebe Hagan. Now, obviously, I'm Phoebe's coach, and I'm going to try to be unbiased as possible with Phoebe here. Actually, Phoebe stopped in the office today to go over, the show and what we can improve on from year to year and the judges' feedback and all that. So a lot of these girls I've talked to about the judges. So some of the opinion I'm giving isn't just mine. It's an informed opinion, which I think is important for every coach to do and just always fine tune and hone your eye at what you're looking at. And this is actually one of the reasons I always do these breakdown videos, because it keeps honing my eye every week. It's like training my eye to get better and better. And of course, providing info to you guys. But looking at Phoebe's overall package and what she brought. So first off, hats off to Phoebe for coming down, really giving it her all. She lived at the Prep Center house, the Team Elite Physique house, for 3 months in preparation for this show, away from her friends, her family, and just really went all in and provided and produced this great result. I mean, she was super in the zone. Looking at where she's at and where she went from just to the Arnold to here is amazing in her overall change in her physique. So it's a crazy thing to think about that, Phoebe is her first Olympia and she is passing 2 Miss Olympia. She beat out Isa, she beat out Janet, and is just, came out of the Olympia with a bang. And I'm super happy about how that went. Now, looking at her overall physique, you've got to understand she's a taller girl, so she's going to be able to have more muscle on her. She actually will need more muscle on her to fill out her frame and to look the part. If you're looking at someone who's like Maureen, who's, 5'2", 5'3", but really round, bubbly muscle, and you put Phoebe next to her, she's going to need a little bit more muscle to look the same, right? So structurally, there's a lot more there's a lot longer muscles, so she's going to need more muscle per square inch to create the same illusion, right? So that's going to be the thing with Phoebe. She's a muscular bikini competitor. She's got everything that she needs. So let's take a breakdown of her on her overall presentation. So as we talked about the suit, just rounding out the glutes at the top, that's exactly how a suit should fit. She uses Angel competition bikinis. And Elisa uses Angel competition bikinis too, but she just puts her suit up too high. She just pulled it up too high. But this is how it's supposed to fit right here. This is how it's supposed to sit on your hips. You see how it rounds out the glutes, but the glutes you don't see the top of the glutes? That's exactly where it should be. Hair, makeup, everything's on point. I'm super happy with her overall look. Posing, of course, she's one of the best posers in the world. She owns theposingportal.com, and she poses hundreds of people a week. So posing, everything like that, just perfect. She made a lot of adjustments to her overall posing to not make her adductors look as prominent as they were earlier this year. And I think that adjustment worked really well for her. Looking at her hamstrings, you see how detailed they are, but there's no separation lines going down them. So a separation line would be down here. That would be like a striated hamstring. She doesn't have that. She just has a rounding of the hamstrings where you see the detail lines alongside the hamstrings. But look at the quads. There's a kiss of the quad muscle, but it's not as huge quad sweep overhang, right? It's just a little bit of that quad muscle. The glutes, they're round, they're full, right? But they're not wellness full. The tie-ins are fully there, but they're not etched in. They're fully there, but you're not seeing that crazy, crazy deep detail line. That's exactly what they're looking for in bikini right now. I would say as far as her overall conditioning goes, she was nailed spot on. I don't think she could have been any tighter than this, or she would have started looking stringy. It's possible she could have been a little bit fuller than this. I don't know if it would have helped her if she was a little fuller than this. I erred on this prep on the side of conditioning. I do think, now hindsight, knowing what the judges wanted, we probably could have brought her in just a tiny bit fuller. But again, we run the risk of losing some of her lines if we brought her in with 100% fullness. Now, going forward with her, we're going to probably push a little bit of muscle and get her just a little bit bigger to fill out her long frame, which is kind of the same scenario as Janet. She's about the same height as Janet. And these taller girls do need a little bit more muscle to fill out their frame and to look the same as someone who's like a 5'2" with round, bubbly muscles, right? So that's what we're going to look at for next year with Phoebe, is just bringing the same exact package, but a little bit fuller, okay? So the balance is there. I don't think there's an issue with her balance. If there is an issue with her balance, she's a little bit glute heavy. That's the one thing, and I've talked to her about this. You're just a little bit glute heavy for your overall physique, so that gives us some room to get her a little bit bigger in the shoulders. Not a lot, a little bit bigger in the lats, but not a lot. And we're talking Phoebe in this same condition, 1 pound, 2 pounds heavier, maybe just a little bit more aggressive with the carb load, and she'd be right there. I think next year, we're going to be shooting for top 5 next year. I think it's really realistic for us to shoot for top 5, especially because she beat, Daraja, who got 4th place just a week earlier. And I think, honestly, how the judging went, which was a really surprising way that the judging went, she actually worked her way up. I think had she been in that first initial 8-person first call out, she would have been probably in that top 5. So how it went was there was an 8-person first call out, but Phoebe was not in that 8-person first call out. She was in the second call out, and then she worked her way towards the middle of that second call out. And then they ended up doing a call back. And with that call back, she ended up working her way and beating people that were in that initial first call out. You rarely see that happen. It's a very rare thing where someone in the second call out gets called back up in a call back towards the end of the show and then starts edging out people in that first call out, which she ended up edging out 2 of them. So that was really great to see her do that. I think that had she been in that first call out, she might have finished 1 or 2 places higher. And so next year, we're definitely going to go for it and go for that top 5. I think that it's very realistic for her to accomplish that. Now we go into a surprise by a lot of people, and that is Amy. Amy was a surprise to almost everyone. Not me. She was in my dark horse video. I knew that she had potential of being in that top 10. I didn't think as high as 6th place. I thought maybe if she got in, she'd be in that 9th place, 10th place slot, maybe edging out Romina or someone like that. But man, she really shined. She got in that first call out. And I will say this about Amy. You need to pay attention to Amy. She's a very dangerous competitor, and I'm going to go into why when we go into this assessment. But first things first, Amy, as I talked about earlier, has really fine-tuned her legs. Her quads, if you look at the earlier pictures of the year, look at her first show of the year, her quads were really dominant to her physique. You looked at the balance issues from her upper to lower body, and she was definitely quad heavy. Now, she does still have very dense quads, but if you look at her, she doesn't have big quads anymore. They're just dense, and she's a little bit shorter, so they're more round and more bubbly, just kind of like Maureen. So she's really fine-tuned her legs. I talked to her at the Meet the Athletes meeting, and she's great. And I told her, I was like, hey, sorry you end up in my videos. I talked about your quads. It's just, it's just part of the thing. She's like, no, it's fine. She said, but I haven't done any compound movements. I haven't been doing anything for my quads. I've been bringing them out. Do you think they're still big in person? And now that I've seen her in person, when I saw her, I was like, you know what? Your legs really aren't that big. They're really not that dominant. They've come down a lot since I first saw you earlier in the year. So that just goes to show you, what bikini sculpting can do. Once you find the issues and you find the problems and you get to this ultra elite level, it becomes about sculpting the body. She's probably working just as hard as on everything else, but on her quad, she's basically manipulated her exercises and her routine so she's no longer doing any of these compound quad movements. And the good thing about that is when you get rid of these like compound heavy quad movements, your waistline might come down too. And it does look like that's happened with her, and her lines have gotten even better because of that. So remember, there's the bikini building stage. There's a bodybuilding stage where you start off when you first work out. Then you have the bikini building stage, you're lifting for bikini, and then you have your bikini sculpting stage where you've already kind of maxed out your muscles and now you're sculpting them to look like a perfect piece of artwork. She has done that. She has done a very good job of that over the last, 6 months or so since she's been in the videos. And I will say she's looking really, really balanced. There's not a whole lot to say about Amy in terms of her overall negatives. I mean, she is looking really, really good. I do think on her core, she could be just a tiny bit tighter. I would also like to see just a kiss of ab muscle, just a little bit of the ab muscles. But it doesn't hurt. You could look at Maureen. She really doesn't have those like six-pack etched abs. And I don't want etched abs, but I want to see just a little bit of muscle in there just to complete that package. But honestly, those are the only little things I can figure out now on her. Her quads still have that density. I would love to see the pretty muscle, a little bit more, a little less density, and that's going to come with time. I think next year, her physique is actually going to peak. I don't think this is her best yet. I don't think she's reached her potential yet. She's fine-tuned. She's learning the game. She's new to the game still. She's sculpting her physique, and that's why I say she's dangerous. And the other reason I say she's dangerous is if you look at everyone in the top 20, Amy's the only one that has muscle bellies like Maureen. She's shorter, rounder, fuller muscle bellies. The difference of her and Maureen is Maureen has more of those pretty muscle bellies and Amy has a little bit more density to them. So as soon as she sculpts her physique, and they're going to get to that more pretty, less dense muscle when she's not lifting them like the quads. When she's taking it easy on the quads, it's not going to be as dense next year. She is going to be a real threat if she fine-tunes this package and doesn't go too far with it next year. She doesn't need to do a lot of work for her to get to the next level. She just needs to pick the perfect routine, make sure she's taking the right time off in between workouts, giving herself not the craziest workouts at this time of the year, and then really going after it towards the end of the year, but not letting her density get too crazy. I will tell you, you line her up next to Maureen side by side, they're going to look very close, and it's going to be hard for the judges when you get those two next to each other. Luckily for everyone else, right now, she's outside of that. But as soon as she gets inside of that, it's a real threat, and she's going to start pushing people out. I can guarantee you how it's going to go. She's going to maybe make top 4 in one of these years. Maybe it's next year, maybe this year after that. And as soon as she gets next to Maureen, if Maureen's still the champion, the judges are going to be like, that girl looks a lot like what we're looking for right now. And then all of a sudden, she's going to go from right outside the left of Maureen to right in the middle and push whoever's in second out, because that physique has the same roundness and bubbliness that you can't create. It's just God-given. You either have it or you don't. And that's scary for a lot of the girls that need to watch out for her in the top 5, because she's coming and there's not a whole lot of work she has to do to look like that. Now we go into one of the shockers for tonight, Lauralie Chapados taking 5th place. Now, I don't know anyone earlier in the year that didn't have Lauralie winning. I mean, probably the only ones that I heard of like thinking that Lauralie wasn't going to win was probably Jen and Mark. They're probably like the only ones that probably thought that Jennifer was going to win. Everyone thought Lauralie was going to win. Judges were saying Lauralie was probably going to win. It was everyone was talking about Lauralie winning, right? So where did she go wrong? How did she slip to 5th place? I think that's the biggest thing here, because Lauralie, let's not take away anything from Lauralie. She is very capable of winning the Olympia. So all you girls that are in the top 4, like, be aware that it's just a matter of her hitting her peak, and she is going to be right back in the mix, potentially even winning next year. But Was there a slip up this year? Did she bring her best? She absolutely didn't bring her best, and she still got a 5th place. So that's pretty awesome at a show like this to be at 95% and still placing really, really high. But where did she go wrong? So looking at her overall physique, she does burn through calories, especially the days before the shows. So something happens with Lauralie where she just starts burning through calories, and just to fill her out, it's really hard to do. So that's something that just because being a personal friend to her, knowing that, that might have been the case. But this is what I think happened throughout the year. One of the things that judges were saying about her was saying, as long as she doesn't put on too much muscle, she's going to be great. She's going to win. As long as she doesn't put on too much muscle, she's going to win, right? And then they kept looking at her in the off season, and she's working out really, really hard. As I said before, I don't honestly think anyone works out harder than Lauralie. Lauralie and Aldo, they put in work over there in Florida. I don't think anyone's going to ever question her work ethic in the gym or all those training techniques with her. She works hard, and she works out like to the best of the ability you can for Bikini. The problem is that in the off season, Lauralie does tend to eat a little bit more than the normal person. She's got a real fast metabolism. She eats pretty heavy in the off season, and she's still lifting hard in the off season. So that is the direct recipe for how to build muscle. Lift hard, lift with expert level technique, eat heavy. That's how you grow, right? It doesn't matter if it's high reps, low reps, you're going to grow. People are like, oh, you can train to not be bigger and you can train for no, you lift heavy, you lift hard, you lift high reps, you lift low reps, you lift anything that's better, harder than the last time you lifted, and you eat to support that lifting, you're going to grow. And I think that's what happened. There was a part of the year where I saw her and she was looking really, really jacked. The judges said they didn't want to see her really, really jacked. So I think what happened was, this is just my guess. I haven't talked to her about this. This is just my guess, is that she was really muscular. When she leaned out, she looked a little bit too muscular. So the only play here was to bring her in a little bit flat. You bring her in a little bit flat, and then she looks a little bit depleted, right? And that's the only thing. And she doesn't look a lot depleted. She actually looks pretty decent. But you could tell she doesn't have that pop to her. I think, honestly, if she would have had just a few more, probably her going from 5th to 1st place was probably the difference of her having somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 grams of fat and a few hundred carbs, right? I think if she would have probably had just that extra bit, maybe an extra day of loading, maybe an extra 2 days of loading of some high fats, some high carbs, and filled out this frame just a little bit more where she didn't have that kind of more depleted look, I think that she probably would have won. Everyone kind of had her as the winner. I mean, it's just her momentum. It was her time. She's been 2nd place twice. She was doing really good in the year. I mean, she just looked like the momentum just shifted somewhere throughout this season. So it's unfortunate to see that, because I know that she wants it really bad. I still think that she's going to win an Olympia title. I don't think that's an issue. I think that for her, it's a matter of when, not if, she's going to be Miss Olympia. And I think that's coming within the next 3 years. I do think that she needs to strategically think about her off seasons, on how muscular she's going to let her physique get, how hard she's working out. And she's honestly someone that might need to be at that point where she just does some basic workout circuits, works out a couple times a week, lets her body kind of rest and recover, and then starts lifting hard again for the Olympia, maybe like at a 16-week prep type of scenario. Like, I don't see her lifting really, really hard like she has been all year long and then bringing in a better package next year, because I think she's going to run into the same issues. She puts on muscle pretty fast. I don't think she's a below average muscle builder. And I think that's just the issue. You have someone that's really muscular. You have to keep them relative size to everyone else. And with someone being so dominant, especially in the legs, her legs do get really muscular. You're going to have to bring them in flat. And if you bring them in flat, you run the risk of them looking depleted, because there's a different look on that, right? Not everyone looks good kind of flat. When you look at Ashley Kaltwasser, she's really round and bubbly. She's got good denseness and hardness to her. So we can bring her in a little bit flat, and it's not a huge variance of the look on her, right? So I can always shoot an air for being a little bit flat and air on the side of conditioning without having to 100% fill her out, because there's not a huge difference on look on her. Now, with Lauralie, there is a huge difference on the look, so you really do have to nail it. And so I think that's where the issue came in, and I think that is a very solvable problem for her. I think that next year she's a real threat again to win the Olympia. I think she's going to need to do a couple shows throughout the year. Maybe she'll do something like the Pittsburgh again or something like that, do a couple big shows, and then carry some momentum into next year's Olympia. But by no means should anyone think that her path is gone and she's not on the road to the Olympia. Everyone has a bad show. It's going to happen here and there. We're playing a sport that there's so many variables. It could have been a lack of sleep for all I know. She could have been sick for all I know. These are all these little factors. You have to nail it the day of the Olympia, and there's so many things that can happen. She's definitely someone who's going to win again or win one day. I'm wondering when at this point. I think you'll see her winning within the next 3 years. Now we go into fourth place, Daraja Hill. So let's go into looking at Daraja a lot closer. And when we look at Daraja and we look at her from last week to this week, it's a different Daraja. So we talked about her the prior week losing to Phoebe in the Battle of Texas, and Phoebe had a perfect score. I talked about her waistline not being that tight. I talked about her glutes needing to be a little bit more conditioned. And talking to her coach, he said, yeah, we just had her doing double cardio from last week to this week, and she really tightened up. And look at that crazy improvement. She doesn't only beat Phoebe, but she moves up 3 spots ahead of her, right? So Daraja was 6th place last year, 4th place this year. So she ended up moving 2 spots on top of that and beating Lauralie, right? That's a crazy thing to say, you know? So hats off to Daraja for really crushing it and really making a big improvement in a short period of time. I think that's all she needed to do. And honestly, if I'm being 100% honest, I still don't think this is Daraja at her peak. I'm curious on how high she would have placed had she peaked, because there's still, if you still look here at the glutes, there's still a little bit of body fat going around that suit. Like we talked about in the earlier video. Now, it's not nearly as much, but you can see the glutes and the fat around the suit, kind of going around the suit. There's still some there, and you're not seeing that on anyone else who's in that top 10. Now, also in the core, she's just a little bit softer. So I think, honestly, Daraja has all the muscle in the world. She's got a great structure. She doesn't need any more muscle to be competitive in bikini. She has everything she needs. She's got great glute tie-ins, great hamstring roundness without separation. Adductors aren't too crazy. Great shoulder width. She is a little bit wider in the waist, I will say that, but she has got good hip width to offset it, and she's got a lot of muscle to offset that as well. She's a competitor that can get away with having a little bit more muscle because of her overall structure, right? Because her waistline is a little bit wider, she can handle a little bit more muscle, and it won't look like too much muscle. It looks more, that's how she has to balance out her physique. Now, looking at her overall package, her hair, her makeup, her tan, her suit color, is great. I love her suit color. I'm still not a fan of this suit cut. I think it's too little fabric in this area and it makes her look softer. But other than that, the actual suit, the glam to the suit, the sparkle to the suit, it's really, really nice. The upper part of the cut, I think, is pretty good. I don't think it's the best, but I think it's pretty good. It's definitely good enough. But overall, physique-wise, there's not much she needs to change. She brings this exact same physique with maybe 2 pounds less body fat next year, and her being top 3, top 2, maybe even winning the whole thing is definitely a realistic expectation for her. Structurally, I mean, for her, you got to understand, personally, this is my personal opinion. I don't think she's peaked yet. I think that if I had her, I'd be like, okay, we need 2 more weeks for her to get fully stage conditioning for an Olympia level competition. And she did that and placed 4th place, right? That's crazy to think about. That's how good she is. So, and I think that if you look at earlier pictures of her at different shows, you could see her with less body fat on her, and then you could be like, okay, yeah, he's not like picking on her. He's right. She's been in better condition than this before, and she placed really, really high at the Olympia because of it. Now she has to come in that lean and maintain the same type of fullness, so that's going to be the trick there. But I think if she does that, it's game over. It's going to be really hard for her to be beat, especially with the amount of muscle the girls are having in that 1 and 2 category, or that 1 and 2 placings. I think that's going to be really easy for her to move up if she brings that next year. Next up, we have Ashley Kaltwasser, the GOAT of bikini, or as she likes to refer to herself as, the cockroach of bikini, because you can't get rid of her, she says. So she says, I'm not just the goat, I'm the cockroach. So looking at Ashley Kaltwasser, she is getting better year over year. Man, it's really surprising to see someone with the level of dedication that Ashley has. Now, I'm going to try to do this as unbiased as possible. Obviously, I'm Ashley's coach and dear friend, but I'm going to do this unbiased as possible for her. But she has been the only competitor who's survived the test of time and who's evolved with the division as it's been evolving on a year-to-year basis. She's maintaining her 3rd place spot. So she's 3rd in the world again, the number 1 American, and it's year over year. And it's just an awesome thing to see, with more improvements this year than there was last year. Now, Ashley, absolutely amazing physique. Conditioning was on point. I don't think that her conditioning really could have been much better. There have been shows where she's been a little bit tighter, but there haven't been shows where she's really fuller. So if you look at the Arnold Classic pictures, she was a tiny bit tighter, but the fullness was maybe the same, maybe a tiny bit less. So her fullness here was great. Now, look at the V taper on Ashley. Look at that tiny waistline. Look at those hips. Great upper glutes. Full tie-ins without etching of the tie-ins. Full roundness to the hamstrings without separation lines of the hamstrings. Adductors don't have a deep V. I mean, everything is there, and she put together a package worthy of that third placing. Now, hindsight, looking at everyone who won, maybe we could have pushed the fullness a little bit more, but we would have probably lost some of her line. So I think this is a good balance of fullness and conditioning. I think we pushed it as much as we could for her physique. Now, what is it going to take for Ashley Kaltwasser to win the Olympia again? It's going to take a few factors. There's going to be a few things. She's right there. She's definitely in the mix. I don't think anyone would have been surprised if Ashley won the Olympia this year. But what does she need to be the Miss Olympia and get that 4th Olympia title again? The only thing Ashley needs is a little bit more in the shoulders. That's really it. She needs a little bit more in the shoulders. Now, earlier when Ashley was coming back in 2018, a lot of people were saying things about, her posing routine not being the most fluid. It was more of a different style posing routine because the more sultry posers came in and she was doing the more bouncy posing, and everyone just thought she was posing wrong because she was posing more bouncy, but the sultry type of posing wasn't really her thing. Now, over the years, she's fine-tuned her posing, and now the judges are actually saying her posing is great. It's actually a strong point of hers. Now, some people still don't like the bouncier type posing, but all the judges have been saying, we love her posing now, don't change it. We love her posing, don't change it. So that's no longer an issue for her. They actually really like her posing. They like her back walk now, and that was always something that we would get years prior, but now they're saying, you know what, keep it exactly the same. We love her posing. It's unique, and it's great, and it's fluid, and it's much better than it was a couple years ago. So really happy that she's made that evolution, and we're getting good feedback on the judging. Now, as far as her suit goes, awesome suit. An Angels competition bikinis, of course, knocked it out of the park again. Looking at her overall suit cut, you see how we talked about the suit fitting on top of her glutes, but not going past the very top of it. It's a perfect cut for her. It has good width down the middle of the suit. This suit helps her look more conditioned because of that extra little width that she has there. But look at her crazy waistline, tiny, tiny waistline, good wide shoulders, good development of those rear delts. She has pretty muscle, even though it's kind of a little bit more dense, it's still pretty muscle without any deep, hard lines in it. There's not any crazy vascularity going through the physique. There's good roundness to the physique, good bubbly hamstrings, good bubbly glutes, right? Everything's round there. The only thing she needs to get a title again is going to be a little bit more on those shoulders, maybe a tiny bit more in the lats, just to create perfect balance between upper and lower body. But honestly, the balance is really, really close. I don't think any judges are looking at her and saying there's a balance issue now. They just want more fullness from her upper body to be hanging with girls like Jennifer and Maureen. So maybe Ashley's probably 2 pounds of muscle away from getting that title again. She's definitely in the mix. She's definitely a threat. Every time she's going to do the Olympia, she's going to be a name in that mix. Now, will it happen again? I don't know. I think it's entirely possible. I think she's getting closer and closer. She's definitely not getting farther from the title. She's getting closer. If anything, this year was a harder Olympia. I don't think there's ever been a harder bikini Olympia than this year. I mean, it's crazy how deep it was. And Ashley got 3rd place again, right? Against the toughest competitors in the world. She is definitely in the mix. Never count her out because she is always up for the challenge. And she's already talking about next year. She's already talking about next year, making my life hard. We all love Ashley. We would hate to not see her compete 10 times next year. So Olympia quality control team is going to be in full effect next year. Expect her to jump on some stages. I don't think, here's the thing. A lot of people say, why don't you guys take a long off season and build muscle and really focus on a lean gaining phase? Well, 2 things. One, let's say we did that. There's no guarantee that she would move up to 1st place, right? So Ashley loves competing. So why not just let her compete and have fun? So Ashley's at the stage where she's going to do things for what it makes her the happiest, and she loves to compete. And again, if there was a guarantee that she could win first, if she just took the whole year off and came back for the Olympia just a little bit bigger, I think she would definitely do it, because there is a positive to it, of course. We definitely want that title. But there's no guarantee to it, and she wants to have fun. She loves competing. She wants to compete as much as she can. And so this next year, I think that's what she's going to do. That's going to be her choice, though. I'll support whatever she decides, but that's really what we need to look at with Ashley. Will she be bringing a little bit more shoulders, a little bit more lats to next year? And if she does, watch out, guys, because she has a real chance at winning that Olympia title again. Next up, we have Jennifer Dorie in second place. Shocker to everyone. Shocker to me after she won, after prejudging. I was shocked. Based on how judging went, I thought Jennifer was winning with a perfect score. Everyone thought Jennifer was winning with a perfect score. I was absolutely floored by that decision. So how judging went, Jennifer was in the middle with Ashley in the top 4 when they did a callback. Okay, so Ashley was in the middle with Jennifer. There was a 9-person first call out. Jennifer was dead center in the first call out, right? Maureen and Ashley were to her left and right. Then they did a call back with 4 people. It was Jennifer, Ashley, Maureen, and Daraja. Ashley and Jennifer were side by side for the first good part of that. And then they moved Ashley out and moved Maureen in next to Jennifer. So it was Jennifer and Maureen in the middle for the last turns. But based on Jennifer being there the whole time, and it looked like they were giving it to Ashley for a second. They were giving her a good chance at second or maybe even a chance at first there. And then Maureen moved in and we're like, oh, okay, that probably means Jennifer locked it up because she was the one they were comparing the whole time. Crazy to think about, but Maureen won prejudging and won the night show. I didn't see her winning. The prejudging. I thought at best she was second place, possibly even third, based on all those movements on how they went. Ashley held the second middle spot for the longer period of time. I thought maybe they already had it judged for Ashley as second or first. I was definitely thinking that it was there somewhere in that 3-1 spot. So it was a crazy scenario when they announced Maureen as the winner. And I want to see, let's go ahead and go look at Jennifer on what happened and why she slipped to second place. So first off, what I will say is that Jennifer came in leaner than she's ever been, right? The bikini division has been evolving really quickly, and the judges saw her in Pittsburgh a few weeks prior, and they said that they wanted her to come in a little bit leaner. Now, I talked about earlier in my top 10 prediction that it's possible that she's going to slip because we don't know what the judges are going to think when they see her that lean. She's never been this lean before. And I think it was a real risk to come into the Olympia that lean. I think strategically it would have been smarter to get in front of Tyler, Sandy, one of these bigger judges in that condition just a couple weeks prior to the Olympia and to get their opinion on her. Because had she have done, let's say, the Battle of Texas a week before the show, a week before the Olympia, or maybe a show 2 weeks before the Olympia, got feedback from Tyler or Itala and Sandy or someone, and they said, yeah, you look great, but you're going to need to be a little bit fuller, a little bit softer come Olympia time. It would have been great for her to have that data. But for her to go into her just one show this year and do the Olympia and come in that hard without having that data from the judges, I think was a slight error in calculations. I think that's really the thing. She just came in just a little bit too lean for her physique, right? They liked her a little bit softer. When we look at Jennifer before, as I said before, if you take the top 15, she was probably the softest last year out of the top 15, and she won the Olympia. They obviously liked her softer. Her look was best a little bit softer. And if that's what the judges want from her, you don't need to change that much going into the next year. And I think that whenever you change your look that drastically, you run that risk. And that's what happened this year. Now, people are saying, I'm looking at some of the reviews from people who just don't know what they're talking about bikini. They're like, oh, she's just a little too lean in the face, and that's what lost it. That's not 100% not what lost it. 50% of the girls lean out in their face a little bit that are in bikini. Actually, probably 80% of the girls get a little bit prepped out in the face. And she's not even that bad when you look at her. So people who don't know what you're talking about, like, study the sport a little bit more. No one's ever lost because of that. You guys are just fools for coming up with that. She's the prettiest girl in the world. When you have her competing and you guys say something like that. So definitely not the case. If you guys think that's it, definitely not the case. Now, when you look at her overall physique, the lines are there. But here's the thing that I will say about her lines. When she's this lean, I do think she's very muscular in her legs. And if you look at her legs, as she's leaner, her muscle pops through a little bit more. She actually looks less balanced this year than she does last year when she was a little bit softer in her core. Her legs do look a little dominant to her upper body when she's this lean. I don't know if she just leans out last on her quads or if her quads are just really developed and they just shine more. They just show more when she's this lean. But her waistline gets really thin. Her shoulders, everything gets really, really lean. And her legs are about the same size. They're a little bit smaller, but they're holding on to a lot more than her upper body, and it makes her balance look a little bit off. And I think that that's really what it comes down to for her is, one, they like her a little bit softer. Two, her balance is a little bit less is a little bit more off when she is this leaned out. I don't think she needs to go this hard. I also saw her in judging, and the other issue I think that she had was she was pushing really, really hard in that back pose. I mean, there's a side shot of her and Maureen, how hard they're pushing, and they are pushing really hard. There's a slight bend to their back pose. They're pushing really hard. And what I saw in judging was some hamstring separation. And when you see this hamstring separation, you could see it here. And these pictures aren't really showing how lean she looked on that stage. They're a little bit softer in the pictures. They're not, they're a little bit pixelated. But this hamstring, when she was pushing hard in that judging phase, that initial judging, you were seeing some real separation lines on those hamstrings. And that's something you never saw from Jennifer before. And I think it was just a bit too much for the judges to say, okay, we're going to award her a win this time again, because that would have evolved Bikini another notch. And I think that they didn't want to do that this year. I think with all the talk with how crazy Bikini has gotten, they've really said, we need to stop with this overall, with pushing conditioning even more, or every division is going to look like women's physique conditioning in the next 5 years. We have to stop it somewhere. And once they started seeing that hamstring detail, they started seeing Jennifer with the shredded upper body coming away from the criteria they were trying to create last year with Jennifer, that little bit of softness. I think they said it was just a little bit too much. I think when they told Jennifer they wanted her to be a little bit harder, they wanted her to be a little bit harder. Not that hard where you're getting that hamstring detail, where you're getting those crazy shoulder caps and things like that. So awesome physique. I think that next year Jennifer brings this exact same package, but a little bit softer, and she has another Olympia title back to her name. I don't think it's going to take her very much at all. Stay away from the quad work. Let that balance come in a little bit better. Bring that same package with maybe 2 pounds more body fat, and don't push so hard in the back pose, and there you go. Bada bing, Olympia Championship number 2. And last, but of course not least, we have Maureen winning the Olympia title. I think even Maureen was surprised that she won the Olympia this year, which was really awesome to see. She said, she's like, I know one day I could win it. I just didn't think it was going to be this year. So it was really cool to see. I love to see humble competitors who are genuinely excited and genuinely, appreciative of winning it and feel lucky to win it. I think that's a really awesome trait. I think that she's going to be a great champion. I have very few experiences with Maureen, but all of them have been positive. And I think this year, they picked a good representative for the Olympia title. So very, very happy for her. Congratulations, Maureen. Absolutely, sincerely mean that. I think that she's a good step for Bikini too. I actually talked to some of the judges, and the judges, they're really great to me. We have open discussions about the direction that Bikini's going at the IFBB level. And, sometimes I'm vocal saying, it's going too far. And, Bikini now looks like what figure used to look like, and you guys are pushing it too hard. And that's not what Bikini's supposed to be about, and things like that. But when you look at Maureen, I don't get any of those signs. I am really happy with Maureen being the new Olympia champion, because this physique is a realistic, obtainable physique with a lot of hard work, of course, which is supposed to be what the champion of Bikini is. It's supposed to be hard. It's supposed to be a real challenge to get to that level, right? But it's not supposed to look like figure. And that's where there was a couple wins this year where they were going after, they were awarding girls who did look really borderline figure. You could look at Miss USA this year. She was completely jacked, right? So super hard. There was a few girls like that. And then all of a sudden they started fine tuning it a little bit more. I think they realized, hey, we went a little bit too hard, a little bit too big. And so let's bring it back a little bit. And if you look at Maureen, you don't get any of those signs of someone who's too big or too muscular or too lean. This is a really good representation of what the Bikini athlete should look like, a Bikini fitness model should look like. It's not too much. If you see her in person, she is not that big. She's round and bubbly. But let's go ahead and take a look at why she won. Now, first off, she wore a pink suit, super risky at an Olympia level. No one's really wearing pink right now. You actually had this year, I saw the most. I saw 3 girls at the Olympia wearing pink. With her winning, expect to see pink suits all over the place next year. There's going to be more pink suits than blue sky next year in the NPC. I promise you that. The year that Ashley won, green suits. The year that Angelica won, purple suits. The year that Janet won, purple suits. Jennifer, purple suits, right? Pink suits are coming, guys. I'll tell you that right now. If you're trying to avoid wearing the same color suit as someone else, you probably don't want to pick pink next year. That's always what happens when someone wins the Olympia. Now, suit manufacturers load up on pink. Now, anyway, with that being said, looking at Maureen, let's look at her physique and look at the roundness and bubbliness to her physique. That's why she wins. She's just made a certain way, right? It's just how her muscle bellies lie. So she's very lean, but look at the detail on her legs. It's not crazy. There's no quad separation here on this front leg. You're not getting any of those quad striations like you'll see sometimes in competitors like Francesca or Ellie, who have like really deep detail in those quad separation lines. She has round, full, bubbly muscles. Now, she is shorter, so she's going to have those rounder muscles. She is the shortest Olympia champion I think we've ever had. So she has those round muscles, but they're not dense. They're not detailed and separated. And that's the thing I was saying about Amy. Amy fits this same criteria. Look at Amy's glutes from the back and look at Maureen's glutes from the back. They're both built very similarly. They have the roundness. They have the fullness. Maureen has a little bit more of the pretty muscle. Amy has a little bit more of the dense muscle, but as soon as Amy can switch that around, she's going to be right there with this look from the bottom half. From the upper half, they're a little bit different. There's a couple things on Maureen I'd like to see improved on, but as far as the overall bikini package and the flow and her posing routine and everything, I think it was spot on. I think, she's not the hardest bikini competitor. You look at her next to Jennifer. She's a little bit softer than Jennifer, but she's got those full deep tie-ins without etching in. Remember, we talked about no etched tie-ins down here, right? She has the full tie-in without the complete etching at the bottom here. There are long tie-ins. She's got the roundness to her hamstring without any separation detail. She's got good adductors without any being too deep a V of an adductor. She has a small, tiny waistline, a good width to her shoulders, a good V taper. She's got development of her arms that aren't too developed. Her shoulders are round and bubbly without any real density. Slight striations. Everyone has slight striations these days, even though the judges say they're not going to reward striations. Everyone has striated shoulders because you have to be in bikini these days. They should honestly remove that out of the criteria because everyone has striations in their shoulders. But she has nice roundness and fullness to her shoulders. Now, the one area of her physique, this is her Achilles heel, and I think that this is where she could lose next to someone else. Her ribs are very ribby, right? It looks like she's honestly doing like a tiny bit of a little bit of a vacuuming in this front pose, and her ribs are expanding. She's really up tall with her posing, and it causes her ribs to really expand a lot. And there's also not any real ab detail like we talked about, where I want to see a little bit of ab detail on her, just a tiny bit of abs. So I think if she can control this a little bit better, if she can get just a tiny bit of a kiss of ab detail, that physique can get even better than this, and it'll even help her lines even more. But obviously, she doesn't need to do anything different. She's the champion now. All she needs to do is bring this exact same package next year, and she'll probably win again. But there is always room for improvement. If I'm looking at her physique with a deep detailed eye, what I'm going to look at is going to be her ribs. I'm going to look at her abs. I'm going to look at a tiny bit more width to her shoulders, but not a lot. It looks like she's someone that could put on a good amount of muscle without going too far in terms of the density, because it's that round, pretty muscle, as we talked about before. It's not that deep, grooved, dense muscle, right? Where it looks like a construction worker's muscle, where it's just grainy and deep, and it's been in the sun for a long time. She doesn't have that. It's that fitness model running on the beach in slow motion, wearing a red suit type of muscle, right? It is exactly what they want in bikini. So she still has room where she can grow, where she's not going to be too much because of how the muscle looks, right? And that's the difference of pretty muscle and dense separated muscle. She can get away with a little bit more that way. But I am really happy the direction that they went this year with bikini, because I think that this is realistic. And I think, it's strange. Whenever you get an Olympia champion, you get a lot of noise from people. When Jennifer won, there was noise for Jennifer. When Angelica won the first year, there was a lot of noise from Angelica, right? Isa didn't get too much noise, but she got noise in the wrong way. Isa got noise in the way where people were like, it's unrealistic for that to be the expectation of bikini, because no one can look like that from the front, because her waistline is like crazy small. I mean, she's got like the smallest waist, who can look like that, right? So she got different types of noise, right? But Maureen's definitely getting a lot of that noise too. It just comes with the title. You're going to have everyone's fans going kind of against you. But me personally, this is pretty much all I do all day long. Me personally, I am really happy with her being the champion. I'm not just saying that to be the politically correct guy, just be like, oh yeah, everyone's a winner. Like, I legit am really happy about that, because it's good for the industry to have that as a standard, because it is realistic for people to look like that. I do think that with years of hard work, you can look like that. It's not going to be easy, of course, but I think that's realistic for bikini. I don't think it went too far. I think that it's good for the business of the NPC and IFBB to not keep pushing that limit so far where you're just shrinking your pool of potential customers, which of course is good for me as a coach as well, and good for everyone who's in the industry. So I'm really happy with how they went. I think that this is the right decision, the right direction for everyone to go. And I hope they continue to bring it in this type of conditioning. So my hat's off to the judges for making that decision and for going the right way and for not letting bikini continually progress where everything looks like figure and everything looks like women's physique level of conditioning, because that's where it would go if they kept letting it go. But I think they said, okay, we're stopping it here. This is it. I'm super happy with it. So anyway, guys, that is my bikini review. Now, nobody got the top 10 in order. So I got to keep that $2,500 because I put that $2,500 contest out for anyone can get it. I will say I got 9 out of 10, and then Amy was my dark horse. So pretty good. 9.5. I'm going to call it 9.5. We'll see if next year I can get it. Anyway, that's what I got, guys. Leave your comments below if you think I'm wrong and I'm crazy, or if you love the content, just helping for the algorithm. Subscribe. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you guys later.